Good day everyone, I am Katrina Riteta, the discussant for today. Today I will discuss to you what are the basic sewing skills. For the overview of my discussion, learning basic sewing skills is a great starting point, most especially if you wanted to pursue this career. Everyone starts at the bottom. Everyone started from the basic learnings. Knowing how to sew allows you to make simple repair to garments. Hem your own jeans, sew on a missing button, and repair on an open seam. So at the end of the discussion, the students will be able to identify the importance of the basic sewing skills, discuss the basic sewing skills, and determine what are the basic sewing skills. So I will discuss first what are they, and later on I will show to you the short video on how to make or how to do the basic sewing skills. So first is learn sewing terminology. The very first thing you need to do is familiarize yourself with sewing terminology. So these are the basic sewing terminologies. First is seam allowance, fabric between the edge and the seam. Next is lining, an inner layer of fabric underneath a garment. Next is seam, the line where two pieces of fabric are sewn together. Next is quilting, stitching two layers of fabric together with a layer of filling in between in a consistent pattern. Next is hem, the edge of the fabric that is folded and sewn under in order to keep the raw edge of the fabric from unraveling. Next is the darts, a wedge shape fold used to shape patterns in order to make a garment fit better. And last, back stitch, sewing back sewing backward over the loose threads of the beginning of a stitches in order to secure your stitch. This this is done at the beginning and of a stitch and whenever the thread is broken. Thread a needle. This seems very obvious, but it's a task that takes some practice to master. There are few key factors that will help you to successfully thread your needle, among which are using very sharp proper sewing scissors to cut your length of thread, using the correct length of thread, using the right size needle for your project, and the correct thread. I know you are all aware on how to thread a needle. So, how to thread a needle? The first thing we need to do is wet the edge of your thread, fold the pinch method, use a needle threader, and use a self-threading needle. So next is choose your thread. It is important to choose the correct thread for the project you'll be working on. So dapat magkapareha ang kulay ng iyong sinulid at ng telang gagamitin. So choosing the right thread. The thread should be match the size, weight, and the properties of the fabric you'll be sewing on. And what is the right color? You can either choose to match the fabric or pick the Constantine color. And as I've said earlier, na dapat magkapareho ang kulay ng sinulid at ng telang gagamitin para mas maganda itong tignan. So, next is sew a straight stitch. So, learning a sew a basic. Straight stitch is imperative and not a step that can be skipped on the way of sewing mastery. And if you are a beginner, the first thing you need to learn is on how to sew the straight stitch. So next is on how to sew a button. One of the most used skills in sewing. Adding a button onto or replacing a button on a garment is highly coveted knowledge. So, how to sew a button? The first thing you need to do is thread the needle and tie the end. Next is create an anchor X point. And next is position the button. Next, create the shank. And last, tie it off. And next is use a pattern. The desire to learn how to sew usually comes from some inspirational like wanting to make a certain garment or item. Typically, it's easy to use a pattern to make such things. So it's pretty imperative to learn how to use a pattern. So pag nagtatahi tayo, it is important to use a pattern para hindi pa sigsag-sigsag ang tinatahi natin at para mas malinis itong tignan. So next is the tools. The right tools for any hobby or vocational skills are prerequisite. If you don't have the proper tools for a job, it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to complete the work successfully. Even if you do accomplish a finished product, it may not be the best quality if you don't use the right tools. So these are the 10 essential sewing tools for beginners. First is the tape measure, the ruler, the fabric scissors, the paper scissors, the seam ripper, the pins, the sewing machine and needles, the iron, the pressing mat, and the tailor's ham. And next is on how to tie a knot. When you're doing any type of hand sewing, such as button or simple mending stitch, you need to know how to thread your needle and tie a knot. You'll also need to know how to finish the stitch by tying a knot. So, how to tie a knot? The first thing you need to do is wrap the thread end around your middle finger. Roll the thread 2 or 3 times to create additional layers for the knot. Third, pitch the rolled thread between your fingers. And last, pull the thread tightly and create the knot. So I will show you a short video on how to do those basic sewing skills.
Good day everyone! Today, I will show to you what are the basic sewing skills. So first, how to thread a needle, tie a knot, sew a straight stitch, choose your thread, use a pattern, and how to sew a button. So let's start. So first, how to thread a needle. In threading a needle, dapat nasa maliwanag tayong lugar, hindi sa madilim. Dahil kung nasa madilim tayo, hindi natin maipapasok ang sinulid sa karayom. And next is how to tie a knot. So next is how to make a straight stitch. And for the choosing a thread, dapat gumamit tayo ng sinulid na bagay sa tela. Pero ngayon, gumamit ako ng black na sinulid upang mas makita kung paano ko ginawa ang straight stitch. And last is on how to sew a button.
So for the activity, write T if the statement is true and write F if the statement is false. I'll give you 15 minutes to finish the activity. For the conclusion, learning the basic sewing skills give you the opportunity to express yourself through your creations. Every aspect of this activity allows you to be creative while designing your own clothing, from selecting the pattern and fabric to putting the finishing touches. It also provides you with something to be proud of because your creation can set you apart from the crowd. Last is the references. So that is the end of my discussion. Thank you for your participation and thank you for listening.